Welcome to Equestrian Fitness for the Long Ride with the Sweaty Equestrian. I'm personal trainer and endurance rider Tamara Baysinger, and I'm here to help you ride stronger in a day and longer in your life. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. If you recall from last week's episode, I recently spent a long weekend at the Midnight Rider Endurance Ride, and it brought up for me a question that I recently received from a member, and actually one that I've heard many times. So I thought it might be interesting for discussion in this episode. And the reason it came up is that while I was at that ride, I ate a certain amount of junk food that I would not normally eat. I had some Triscuits, I had some Wheat Thins, I ate a cupcake for a junior's birthday at the trailer next door. I ate some instant oatmeal, all these things that I just normally would not include in my diet, things that fall under the processed food heading, and they only really show up on my radar on occasion, usually when I'm at an endurance ride and I need something that's appealing that I can grab quickly. And you know what? I don't worry about it. I just don't get concerned that I'm going to put on weight or lose my health status. And on top of it, I didn't work out for almost a week because of getting ready for the ride, traveling to the ride, doing the ride, hanging out the day after the ride, driving back to the ride. The gym just was not in the cards there. And once again, not worried about it. But the question is, why? Why am I not worried about it? Why do I not have to be concerned that that is going to affect me as a menopausal woman? And why is it that that is not true for everyone? See, for some of us, we can get away with these occasional exceptions to our regular quality nutrition and fitness commitment, whereas other people feel like any little deviation, any little mistake or cheat day, if you want to call it that, goes straight to their hips. And let me just get out of the way one misconception right up front. If you go to an equestrian event or a vacation or anything else, and you feel like, I gained 5 pounds over the weekend. You might have gained 5 pounds of weight, but that does not mean you gained 5 pounds of body fat. There's a difference. You're eating more sugar and more salt, and that causes you to retain water. And so, yes, your weight may have gone up by a few pounds, but it is not all fat. And when you return to your regular diet, you're going to find that water weight goes away pretty quickly. And that includes the visible puffiness that makes the mirror say that you, quote unquote, gained weight. So don't worry over much about it on that front, but it is still true that some people can just get away with a little junk food here and there and skipping some workouts here and there. And others do really experience a meaningful setback in their progress, especially if they're trying to lose body fat when they do those things. So why is that? That's what we're going to talk about today. Why are we different in that way? Well, it boils down to whether or not your body has the ability to use fuel appropriately under variable circumstances. This is known in the health and fitness world and the medical world as metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility is a good thing. And in a metabolically flexible rider, the body is able to easily shift between a fed state when you've just had a meal and a fasted state when it's been a while since you took in nutrition. And when I say fasted, I don't mean fasted for days and days. I just mean the period maybe overnight or between breakfast and lunch. So, if you have good metabolic flexibility, your body knows what to do when you are fasted, when you haven't recently eaten. Your body will be able to access stored glycogen, or basically stored sugar or carbohydrates, from where it lives in your liver and in your muscle tissue. And it will also be able to access your stored body fat. This gives your body nice, steady energy. Even the leanest of us have enough body fat on us to supply us for weeks and weeks and weeks of energy. So if we are able to access our body fat as well as that stored carbohydrate or glycogen for energy, then we don't get the energy spikes and crashes that you've probably experienced at some time in your life. And then when you do eat, your body knows how to direct the nutrients, the protein, the carbohydrate, the fats that you take in, into specific pathways to be used appropriately. That could go toward immediate energy, toward tissue repair, toward storage as body fat for later use, and the cycle continues. That is how it's supposed to work. But if we lack metabolic flexibility, our body instead struggles to shift between that fed state and that fasted state. In this situation, without metabolic flexibility, when we don't eat for a while, we run out of that ready sugar, that glycogen, and we crave more of it instead of sliding effortlessly into burning body fat. And then when we do eat, the body struggles with that nutrient partitioning, and it tends to send resources into storage, into body fat, too readily. So do you see the vicious cycle there? Not only will you store body fat more easily, you will also have more trouble accessing it for energy. And this is what gets us in that trap that leads to being overweight, storing too much body fat. So can you see why there's a difference between someone who does the very same thing, has a bunch of junk food over a weekend, if they're metabolically flexible and they're able to, yes, partition that extra nutrition into some body fat, but they're also able to pull it back out of there for use between meals, versus someone who doesn't have that metabolic flexibility and they just tend to take in that extra nutrition and store it and crave more and store that too. It's a different cycle. There's a positive cycle and there is the corresponding negative cycle depending on how metabolically flexible you are. So, how do you know? How do you know if you are or aren't metabolically flexible? Well, if you are metabolically flexible, you should have pretty steady energy throughout the day, most days, without crashes, without brain fog, without getting hangry. You shouldn't be experiencing strong or irresistible cravings. You may still want to eat something because it's yummy, but that's different. The irresistible pull or craving for it that you just can't let go of, you really shouldn't be experiencing that because you have that nice, steady energy. You should also have good exercise tolerance, meaning that you can go out and do something like hike for a few hours or ride your horse for a few hours or do a few hours of farm work without getting fatigued. Also, you shouldn't be getting sleepy post meals. Instead, you should feel nice and energized after you eat. So that's what life is like if you are metabolically flexible. Oh, and one other thing, weight maintenance should be easy. It should be pretty effortless because remember, although your body is operating correctly and storing some of what you take in as body fat, you are able to access it and use it for energy rather than just stockpiling more and more and more. Now, if that is not you, if you're listening to this thinking, I guess maybe I don't have that metabolic flexibility, the good news is you can get it. You can improve your metabolic flexibility. So let's talk about exactly how. And by the way, I'm going to give you about, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to give you 5 things to do to improve your metabolic flexibility. And these are meant to be done in conjunction with one another. Sadly, you don't just get to pick and choose the ones that you like best or that sounds easiest. I mean, that will help a little bit, but it's probably not going to really move the needle. A couple of these are really super important. Some of them are a little bit less important. But as with most things in life, the ones that are a little bit more challenging to implement are also the more important ones. And really, this is going to work best if you do all of these things. They work together in coordination with one another to change the signaling that your body gets hormonally and in a lot of different ways to change your metabolic flexibility. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how to improve your metabolic flexibility. First of all, you have to eat enough food. Yeah, you heard that correctly. You have to eat enough food. I say this because a lot of you are women and a lot of women tend to undereat. Why? Because we're trying to keep our weight under control, right? We have this cultural standard. We have the standard that we've set for ourselves. We want to be lean and strong for our horses. And so we're afraid if we eat too much, we will be too heavy for whatever standard we're trying to meet. Well, guess what? That actually, dramatically overeating too many calories will cause you to gain weight, but dramatically undereating enough calories will prevent you from losing weight. Now, why is that? It's because chronic underfueling causes your body to signal, store more fat. We are in a famine, and it's going to cause you to crave more food, especially carbohydrate, for quick energy instead of releasing the stored fat that you have for energy. And then when you do give up, cheat, quote unquote, I don't like that term, but cheat, then your dysregulated nutrient partitioning is what makes it go straight to your hips because your body is primed to hang on to everything that you're taking in because it's trying to save your life from a famine that doesn't really exist, but your body doesn't know that. So when you chronically undereat, when you first start doing it, you will lose weight. It'll be some fat and some muscle, but you will lose weight. But at some point, your body is going to adjust to that and down-regulate your energy expenditure and start storing fat more easily because, again, it is trying to save you from what it thinks is a food shortage. So in order to be metabolically flexible, you have to eat enough food to provide your body with the nutrition it needs to say, okay, we're safe, we're not starving, it is okay to release body fat. So eating enough food is important, an appropriate number of calories for your body weight, and then eating less carbs can help break the cycle and improve your metabolic flexibility. I am not talking about going very low carb. Maybe you've heard the term VLC, very low carb, or keto, trying to be in ketosis. But I am talking about bringing your carbs down from what the typical Westerner eats to something, for most average-sized women, I would say somewhere around 100 grams a day is a reasonable place to start. That's well under what a lot of people eat, but it's still enough to give you good energy. And this is important, especially in menopause. I don't like to see most menopausal women going really low carb. We actually need that to help keep our hormones happier and things. But overeating the carbs more than we need will drive up our blood sugar. And you'll recall perhaps that causes more insulin to be released. And in a dysregulated system, that higher insulin release promotes inappropriate body fat storage. And that leads to energy crashes and cravings. And then we're back in that cycle that we already talked about. Now, eating your fruits and veggies is awesome. That's great. Get your carbs from that primarily. You don't really need any grains. You certainly don't need any sugars, including the natural ones. So those are really easy places where you can cut back on the carbohydrates. Now, what would you replace that with? Because remember, we want to eat enough food, so we don't just want to cut the carbs. We want to replace those calories with something, and the thing to replace them with is protein. You're going to need that protein for one of these fixes that we're getting to in just a minute here. So we're eating enough food. Perhaps we're eating fewer carbs. If we tend to be a pretty high carb eater, let's cut back maybe to mostly fruits and veggies, getting around 100, maybe 120 grams on an active day. But you don't need to go keto on me. All right. Also, you want to move more often. It actually is true that it helps to get up from your desk if you have a desk job and just move around for, say, 5 minutes out of every hour. You hear this kind of advice all the time, go to the restroom on another floor or things like that. Park on the far side of the parking lot. And that actually is good advice. I often cringe at it because it's not going to make you fit if you are unfit. However, it is going to have a metabolic effect in a positive way if you move more often. So just looking for ways, set a timer if you need to get up, move around, climb a couple of flights of stairs, and then go back to sitting if that's what you have to do, like me, to get your job done. Also, you need to sprint once in a while. You need to move your body hard and fast once in a while. This is often done in the form of interval training, commonly referred to as HIIT. That's high intensity interval training. And you're probably familiar with it. This is where after a nice warm up, you do a series of short but very challenging intervals. So if you were running, it would be a sprint at like a 9 out of 10 level of effort. Or you could do it on an elliptical machine for a no impact option, or it works really, really well on a stationary bike, another no impact option. The idea is to work really, really hard, but for short periods, maybe 8 30-second intervals with 1 minute of rest in between, and then pedal it out or walk or whatever for a nice cool down for 5 or 10 minutes, and you're done. If you do that even once a week, it will change your hormonal signaling and improve your ability to access stored body fat and not store more than you need. So how are we doing here? We're going to eat enough food. Maybe eat less carbs. If we're a high carb eater, cut that back. We're going to move more often throughout the day, sprint once in a while, high intensity intervals, even one workout a week is great. And then the biggest factor of all, this is the one that is hardest for people to do usually, but also the most important, and that is build muscle. You have to put more muscle on your body. Why? Because muscle is one of the few places in your body where you can store carbohydrate as glycogen. Your liver can store some, but it can only store a certain amount. And when that is full, you can fill up what your muscles are able to store. And when that is full, guess where that extra carbohydrate goes? Yeah, it goes to body fat. So the more muscle you have, the more you can eat of everything but carbohydrate in particular before it gets stored as body fat. Also, the more muscle you have, the more insulin sensitive you are going to be. So that means that less insulin is needed in order to keep your blood sugar in check. And for a variety of reasons, that is a very good thing. Building muscle also changes your mitochondria, which are those little powerhouses of your cells that deal with energy availability and production. Also your hormones. Basically, it improves your body's capacity to generate energy and burn fat. So how do we build this muscle? Well, obviously we strength train. Cardio is not a great way to build muscle. You will get fitter in other ways. You will develop your cardiorespiratory system, and that is very good for you, but it's not a great way to build muscle, and it's not a great way to lose body fat if that is your goal. Instead, the best thing you can do is lift heavy weights. And honestly, the heavier the better. If you can work up to lifting very heavy weights safely, that is going to be the best thing for you. But you do have to work up to it. If you've never lifted before, obviously you don't want to go into the gym and pile 200 pounds onto a squat bar and start squatting that. Of course not. You start small. You start with what feels safe and where you can learn how to do the movements correctly. But the problem is a lot of people, especially women, unfortunately, start that sort of program. They start some sort of strength training, but they don't continue and get stronger and keep pushing and lifting heavier as they learn the movements, as they get stronger, as their connective tissue and their muscle develops. And so they reach a certain point and then they don't continue to progress because they don't continue to push the boundaries and push heavier weight. So that is why I offer these programs inside the Sweaty Equestrian membership that have that kind of progression built in to help you go from whatever level you're at. Literally, if you're just off the sofa from a big injury and you've recently been approved to resume exercise, we can start there. Or if you are feeling good and strong and you want to get stronger and shoot for higher performance, we can work you all the way up to there and everything in between. So it's all very individualized. But the point is, you need to be lifting heavy or working toward being able to lift heavy. That's how you're going to put on muscle. That's how you're going to improve your metabolic flexibility. And I said I would circle back to protein. Remember, if you're decreasing the carbs, you're replacing those calories with something. The something is protein, dietary protein. And that is because protein is those amino acids that are the building blocks for your muscle. So when you're lifting heavy, you're going to be needing the resources, the building blocks to build the muscle that your body is now demanding. We got to put this muscle together out of something. So eat plenty of protein. Okay. So in summary, yes, there are people who can skip a few workouts and eat occasional junk without losing fitness or gaining weight and just without worrying about it. And the reason we can do that is because we are metabolically flexible. There is some influence of genetics on this. Some people are luckier than others in this sense. And also metabolic flexibility declines for all of us with age, but all of us can also improve our metabolic flexibility by taking those steps that we talked about. If that's something that fascinates you and you want to learn more about it, this is what we do inside my Leaner, Stronger Rider program. So you can go to thesweatyequestrian.com and look under the section about rider fitness and read up on the Leaner, Stronger Rider program. And you can grab that if it's something that's interesting to you, or it's available for free or included, I should say, inside the membership. So you can either buy it outright or you can access it as a member. That's at thesweatyequestrian.com. One more thing I want to put in your head about this is that consistency is really important while you are making the change. While you are working on improving your metabolic flexibility, the more consistent you are, the fewer exceptions you make and the fewer gaps in your workouts, the fewer poor nutrition choices that you make, the faster you will get results and the better the results you will get. So I guess you could think of it this way. You have to be consistent in order to earn the ability to later occasionally be inconsistent. You have to be consistent while you change in order to later have the ability to be inconsistent without it doing any damage. Okay, so I hope that is helpful to you. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, feel free to send it my way. You can hit reply on any of my newsletters, and you are subscribed to my newsletter, right? It's free. You can subscribe on the website at thesweatyequestrian.com. And if you hit reply on any of those emails, you can ask a question, and I will be happy to answer that for you and help you ride stronger in a day and longer in your life. Want to get more sweaty? Subscribe to my newsletter at thesweatyequestrian.com/newsletter. And remember, you have what it takes to be a full athletic partner for your horse. Saddle up strong.